I had spent so much time pretending that I wasn't Asian that I really did forget that I was. And in a lot of ways, it was really easy to forget. It seemed like there was nobody that looked like me anywhere. There was nobody that looked like me in school. There was nobody that looked like me in the movies. There was nobody that looked like me on TV or in the magazines. And most importantly, there was nobody that looked like me in the books that I loved. In fact, the only book I ever saw with an Asian person in it was this one. One day, my elementary school librarian took this book out, and she said, "Today, we're going to read The Five Chinese Brothers." And all of my classmates turned to me and said, "Oh, Chinese, just like you!" Have you ever been horrified by your own reflection in a mirror? Because that is how I felt every time I was reminded of my ethnicity.
Hello, I'm Mark.
And I'm Murray.
And we're here to tell you about the word empathy.
Empathy, yes! Empathy!
When one thinks of empathy, they might say it is the ability to understand how another living being feels. This definition, however, is only the tip of the iceberg. Empathy is a multifaceted skill that takes time, practice, and patience to master.
The jury's still out on exactly how and when full-blown empathy develops, but your first few years of life involve a lot of learning about feelings and thoughts. Talking with kids about their emotions, suggesting ways they could show empathy, or even reading stories about feelings can help them figure this stuff out.
Children absorb what they see in their immediate vicinity. If they live in a house with access to food, toys, and a caretaker who makes sure they are bathed and taken care of, they are likely to have a strong reaction the first time they see a child who does not have these things. Likewise, if a child is growing up in an all-white household, they may find it hard to relate to a child of a different race. A simple way to expose children to other people before school is through their storybooks. Identification with characters who are dissimilar from the readers is the most valuable contribution of children's storybooks to cognitive empathy. In other words, seeing diverse characters in books allows children to imagine themselves in the role of any type of character.
Master has presented Dobby with clothes. Dobby is free.
This theory was put to the test by a team of Italian researchers in 2014 who wanted to know if fifth graders' attitudes towards stigmatized groups, like immigrants, refugees, and the LGBT community, could improve simply by reading the most popular children's book of all time, Harry Potter. The researchers first tested the students on social issues. Once the questionnaires were completed, the students read selected passages from the Harry Potter novels and had a group discussion about what they had read. 1 week after the last session, the students were given the questionnaire again. The result of the study was that, even though the students were reading about magical creatures and fictional characters, they were able to relate the messages to the real world.
Call me a mudblood.
He did not.
They were able to understand prejudice, immigration, racism, and homophobia on a new level. The researchers believe this is because the children were able to associate themselves with the heroes, like Harry Potter and his pals, and strongly disassociate with the villains, like Lord Voldemort, Draco Malfoy, and the rest of the Death Eaters. In summation, by reading a children's fantasy novel, fifth graders learned empathetic skills that they were able to apply to real-world situations. In 2018, for the first time in United States history, the combined non-white population made up the dominant share of the under-15 age group. 50.1% of children in the United States identify as Black, Hispanic, Asian, Native American, or multiracial. And yet, out of the 3,200 children's books published in the United States in 2019, only 14% featured non-white characters.
Books transmit values. So if you pick up a book and you read a book, you say the people in this book were valuable enough to record their lives, to record their neighborhoods.
People want to see others who look like them, or who are in similar situations as they are in their media and popular culture. It makes them feel like they are part of society and reinforces positive views of themselves. And the value of publishing diverse children's books doesn't stop at diverse children.
The diversity needs to go both ways. I mean, it's not just children who have been underrepresented and marginalized who need these books. It's also the children who always find their mirrors in the books and therefore get an exaggerated sense of their own self-worth and a false sense of what the world is like.
The goal, then, should be to normalize books featuring diverse characters. As Ray Baskowitz, senior buyer at Baker & Taylor, said, ideally, books can and should be published that readers wouldn't necessarily think of as diverse, but which simply feature characters and instances of experience that just weigh in organically in the world of a particular story. In this way, the wonderful world of children's books can be a valuable tool to teaching empathy and making sure every voice is heard.